Structuring use cases. So sometimes when you've done use cases and your use case diagrams, you realize that there are sub-processes that can be reused. So for example, in the buy item use case, we have the option to pay by cash. You may also pay by credit card or by check. Um, we have a number of different options to do this. I mean, the first one would be to obviously copy the entire use case and then just replace those lines. That's, for obvious reasons, not the most optimal way of doing things. So if we look at the text version, the main use case and the way the main course of events goes is that we have the customer arriving at the checkout, records identifiers, and we tell the customer the total and gives cash to the cashier. Here we've locked ourselves into just paying by cash. This is the tricky line that we need to deal with. And then we records how much cash we've received and deposits the cash, gets the balance due to the customer, and give a receipt back to the customer. So somewhere here is where we need to do something differently. Our first option is to restructure it and say that we choose a payment type. The customer does this, and if it's a cash payment, then we initiate a different use case, pay by cash, or pay by credit, or pay by check. And once we've done this and come back, so this is like a function call, if you will. We log the sale and we print the receipt, and then we go back and do things as we previously decided to do. We can make this slightly better. We can, first of all, rather than having it inside the use case here, we can say these are options. So we say that the customer pays and the system handles the payment. That's a nicer way of putting it. And then we put as options that we have cash, credit, and check payment. This underlined name here is the name of another use case. So by doing this, we're using James Coburn's notation to say that this use case calls another use case, which makes it slightly easy to find. That way we can restructure our use cases so that we have one main use case, and then we have these options where we do cash payment in one side, credit payment as a separate use case, and check payment as a separate use case. These sub-use cases, you would describe them as full use cases, of course, with the name and the actors involved and everything. But the main course of events is then that for the cash payment, this is then we lift out all the details that had to do with cash payment. So we chooses to pay by cash. We give cash to the cashier. The cashier records how much cash he received, and the system shows the balance due to the customer. And the cashier puts in the money into the box and takes out how much the customer should get in return, and then gives this to the customer. Having done this, we then come back and the system logs the sale, prints the receipt, and we give the receipt back to the customer. This is interesting because there's no easy way of dealing with this, that we have a balance here. This balance might be, even if you pay by credit or check, you might have a balance coming here. And normally you would give it back with the receipt. Not as part of putting money in and taking money out of the box. So you need some way of passing the money from the sub-use case here back to the main use case. I don't think I did a good job of it here, which is why I'm rambling about it a bit, but I'm sure you can do better. If we do a use case diagram, this is the notation we do. We have the main use case, and we have the sub-use cases, check payment, credit payment, and cash payment, and they include, or they are included into the buy items use case. We introduce a new actor here, the credit authorization service, which is only involved in one of the use cases. That's the credit payment use case. There is also, you may sometimes stumble upon the word extend in terms of use cases. And the difference between include and extend is that if we do include, it's like in the example, we include a sub-process into a main use case. And the arrow goes from, strangely enough, from the included use case into the big one. The extends is a different case where we may want to keep the main use case stable. So in this case, for example, the buy items, we have actors working on the buy items use case, the cashier and the customer. We have sub use cases that are included in this, and we may have a lot of other reasons. This is the use case we've delivered to a particular customer. This is the typical normal case that we need to support first, or whatever reasons. But we also have a need to extend this in some way. We need to modify this use case in some way. For example, if we want to use that I can pay with a gift certificate, or even purchase a particular item with a gift certificate, this may change the main use case and the main course of events. But we don't want to actually replace the previous main buy items use case. Then we use the extends notation. So we say that the gift certificate extends the buy items. This is like superimposing a new way of doing things on top of the main use case. If you're familiar with aspect-oriented programming, then you'll know what I mean with this. And this includes and extends gives us the ability to structure our use cases, and rather than duplicating information in various places, we can now add them as sub-use cases, and sort of like inheritance, sort of like aggregation, we can reuse our use cases in more than one place. Thank you.